Alright lads, so a couple of days ago we did do a PvE tier list, and in that video I did get a lot of feedback, stuff I will be changing going forward into the next month when we do update the tier list. But within that video I did say that I will be tackling a raid battle tier list, Bleach Brave Souls PvP game mode for the most part, even though technically we have Arena now, which I might do a tier list video on that, so stay tuned for that if you haven't already subscribed. But for today we're going to be focusing on Brave Battles because we did get a new character, and the last time I updated my Brave Battle tier list was for the 5th anniversary, so it's been a year and a half since then, once more since I've done a PvP tier list. So now is the best time to update it, and I'll explain why I placed the cards where I did by tiers. So if you want to just jump to the end to hear me talk about the SS tier characters, then by all means go ahead. But for now we're going to start off building starting from D tier to all the way to SS tier. So starting off with D tier, let's talk about it. Now D tier are characters that I kind of just threw together because they are NAD based, they can be used, but I feel like they have one big glaring weakness, and that is the lack of poise. Poise is something that I'm going to be saying a lot. Essentially, poise is a skill that mostly every character here does have, with a few exceptions, where if you take damage, it negates the stagger effect. When you take hits, you get staggered. It stops what you're doing. Most of these characters here have poise, therefore when they do take damage, it doesn't matter. It's like they're not even getting hit. Their stamina is going down, right? Your stamina still goes down, but you're not getting staggered, and you're just non-stop hitting. It's not going to stop you from doing what you want to do. So not having poise and then going against a poised character, night and day difference. Your character really does struggle. So for the most part, every character here lacks poise. Some of the other three, the Oetsu, Renji, and also Noitora, also lack DR. So they're just okay characters to use. I don't really recommend them. This Dodoni does have 20% DR, which is great, but no poise, kind of for the most part. Now, moving on to C tier. C tier, you might be surprised why I placed the cards this low, because I know a lot of people would say, like, Jusho's actually semi-decent when it comes to Brave Battles, but essentially the reason why I placed the cards where I did is because, one, range AI is piss poor in Brave Battles. It is not the best. Range AI has been designed very poorly, and they really should update it, but they don't. So essentially, when a character gets up close and personal, a mini character will just non-stop hit back if they have poise. A range character, even with poise, for some reason wants to keep the distance. Even when they don't need to. If they have poise, they don't need to keep the distance. But because the way they designed the AI, a ranged character would flash step backwards. So in that case, you're losing out on potential DPS because your character is wasting their time flash stepping. At the same time, because the character is flash stepping, that character that is now attacking you has like a second or so to then continue attacking you while you're wasting your time flash stepping. And at the same time too, the direction your character flash steps can mess up a lane, and sometimes you can end up getting hit by two characters on the enemy team. So I don't really recommend bringing any ranged character into Brave Battles, especially NAD ones. Even though, Jusho in idea sounds great because he has the boost, he has the shield, for example, the +5 shield for himself. Yeah, it's not really the greatest idea to use, and it really does require some transcendence on these characters. Having said that, though, there was a strategy, a very viable strategy, a strategy that I made multiple videos on called the last ditch / sniper strategy. And the idea is that, let's say, for example, you're bringing Jushiro, you want him to die. And when he does die, the character that just killed him will then go and focus on your other two teammates, and hopefully one of them are tanky enough to give you time for that Jushiro to revive. And because no one is now focusing on your revived Jushiro or any other ranged character in general, your ranged character will just snipe from afar. They won't be flash stepping because no one will be focusing on them, and they'll be able to do basically free damage until your two other characters die. It's a very viable strategy, a strategy now that has basically died to a certain extent thanks to this new Kenpachi, because this Kenpachi does have Ignore Last Ditch. So, in a sense, if you are still rocking that strategy, you have to kind of avoid Kenpachis like a plague, but if you are rocking the strategy and I go against you and I have Kenpachi, I'm going to be farming you to get to Captain League or Head Captain. So, I don't think the last ditch strategy is very viable anymore. It can still work, but for me personally, I want to have more consistent wins when you're building your teams, because of how, the fact that AI is controlling your enemies. It can go either way. There's a lot of RNG in Brave Battles that can really screw up your run, whether that's the soul bomb spawning at the wrong time, they get the soul bomb, they inflict you with status augment. You want to make sure you have a very consistent team, and ranged characters are kind of inconsistent. So it's a strategy that you can use, but personally, I'm going to stay away from it. And if you are using it, I'm going to be attacking you with my Kenpachi and destroying your team. Moving on to B tier. Okay, so B tier is just basically the average set of characters. These characters, while they are ranked to a certain extent, don't focus too much on the ranking for the middle tier, because it is kind of hard to rank all these characters. But essentially, they're all characters that have flurry and poise. Some are better than others because they have DR, and that's about it. Some have boost, which is great. So, for example, this Yoruichi, this Chad, this Soifon, and I believe that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it. And this Kenpachi too. They all have boosts, and boost is also important in Brave Battles, and that's why you're going to see Tsukishima in a lot of teams when you're in the higher leagues, because boost strong attacks increase your attack, your whole entire team's attack, focus, and defense by 33%. That is huge, especially if you are going against a team that doesn't have a boost. So it's almost recommended that every team that you use have a boost in the team. So having, even like, if you don't have Tsukishima, for example, someone like Chad, Noitora, and Ikaku are very good boost characters, good substitutes just to get in, and also if you don't have them, then these characters are semi-decent boost characters that you can use. Other than that, though, I do want to mention Chad is not the most reliable booster, because he unfortunately does not have DR, so he isn't as tanky as characters that do have DR. But most importantly, he does have a boost and team heal. Now, in theory, it sounds great when you combine a boost and a team heal. However, when it comes to Brave Battles, you want your boost to go off straight away, because you want those extra stats as soon as possible, because that means you take less damage, it means you do more damage. In this case, and the same can be said for Kira right here, because she also has a team boost and a heal. The AI, once again, kind of dumb, prioritizes the team heal over the boost, which in a sense makes sense. It's not dumb, but with what you want to do with that character, you want to have that boost straight away. So with the fact that you're now taking more damage from the get-go, and then you heal up, it might be already too late. So I think, yeah, it's semi-decent, the idea of a team heal and boost, but just not really good enough. Some characters lack maybe status elements or good status elements or DR, for example, or just good damage output overall. Something extra that these S-tier characters have, or S-tier and even A-tier. So yeah, these are just like the mid of the barrel kind of characters. I do want to highlight some characters. For example, Moe is a character that in theory might be very decent, really good against someone like Tsukishima. So Moe was designed to counter someone like Bruno in Arena, and this ain't about Arena, but he has a 50% chance to dodge no affiliation enemy attacks. So that means, in a sense, if you build him with full DR and then put this character against Tsukishima, I haven't tested it personally because I don't have him, and I've never really even seen Moe in Brave Battles. You very, very rarely see a Arena character because no one pulled for them. In theory, it should be semi-decent. It might be a very viable strategy to kind of counter Tsukishima because he does have a 10-second invincibility. So Moe should be good against Tsukishima. You were designed to counter Retsu. Retsu's basically in the same tier as you. Let's talk about the two SP characters. So it is the Arena Okiura and the Aizen. As I did mention, maybe I didn't because this is my second take for recording this, Aizen is a very viable SP character using Brave Battles right now, thanks to Kenpachi. I made a video on him a couple days ago saying I created the ultimate Kenpachi counter, because essentially you are a hard character with a 50% chance to dodge swiper attacks, which is great, but he also has very powerful strong attacks, weakening, drain, and also an SA2 that is a vortex. So a lot of the times when I put him against Kenpachi with Pierce Barrier, for example, it pretty much one-shots Kenny. Kenny will then revive and die instantly because the vortex is now placed on top of him. So Aizen is actually really good to go against Kenpachis, and in theory, again, once more, this Okiura should also be the same, because he has Pierce Barrier, and I believe he also has a Barrier himself, which saves you the extra bonus skills, for example. Although I haven't tested it out, he isn't a hard character, and he doesn't have as much damage compared to, let's say, Aizen, for example, so not really sure how this would work, but in theory, he should also work against a good SP character to basically one-shot any uninvincible character, which is only, everyone here but these three characters, Tsukishima, Jugum, and Yamamoto. So very good strategy overall, can work, but again, similar to the last ditch strategy, is that it's good against Kenpachis and non-invincible characters, but if you're going against it, I'm pretty sure, even though I'm winning all my games in Lieutenant's League and I'm about to get promoted to Captain, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are winning against my team, so that's just how it is. But Aizen's very good at dealing with Kenpachis, and that's why he's still on my main team. So, and it's also fun to use SP characters in Brave Battles. I haven't done it in a very long time. So now let's move on to A tier, which only has 3 characters. I might move up some characters in the future, but in my opinion, they're just like the characters that are better than those in B tier, but worse than those in S tier, in my opinion. So here we go. So Kenpachi and Rurouni are basically very similar in a sense that they have almost the exact same kit. The whole gimmick with these two characters is that they have an SA2 that is a vortex around them. It's not in front of them, it's around them, which is great as a good start time. It has a very good chance to inflict weakening against the enemy that they're going against. Unless they're invincible, unless they're immune to weakening, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get weakened when you get put against those two characters, which is nice. Now, Kenpachi does have Captain Killer, which is more fit for Brave Battles because it does 40% more damage to captains. There are a few captains, including himself. And Rurouni doesn't have a good killer. She has Hollow Killer. However, she does have 20% Bruiser, so in general, against any other character but a captain, Ruroka will out DPS Kenpachi, and that's why I put her above Kenpachi. At the same time, she is a human. No one has human killer, so she's obviously going to be a more tanky character than Kenpachi. This Kenpachi is going to be pretty much a easy kill for those that have Captain Killer, right? And especially if you are immune to weakening. At the same time, too, Ruroka does have a very good strong attack 3 to get rid of barriers, and barriers are set to become a lot more meta in Brave Battle. So Ruroka is a PvE character, but is actually pretty good even to this day to be used in Brave Battles, because again, she is a human and no one's really ever going to counter human characters. Moving on to Yami. Yami was kind of a surprise when I was actually making this today, so I didn't know what to put him. I was going to originally put him in B tier, but then I saw his kit, I'm like, hold on. Yami's kind of good. So he has long reach, which is great. So he does, more range is nice. He has last hit survival, which is also great. Obviously, just don't put him against Kenpachi. He will then revive if he does die, and that's built into the character. He has good damage output, 4+1, poise, and a DR. I think it's 20% too, which is also great. But the main thing about him is that he's immune to drain and weakening. And that's very powerful because a lot of characters have drain and weakening. For example, these 3 characters right here, Jurugum, Tsukishima, and Yamamoto all have drain or weakening. So you have drain, and then you have weakening, So being immune to that is already nice from the get-go. If you ever, let's say hypothetically get this Yami 5 out of 5 and build him with full defense builds, woo! He's going to be a nasty tank, because normally, let's say, for example, Chad. Chad is a character that a lot of people have built up to full defense, and that's why people really like Chad in Brave Battles, but he struggles against characters with stats because he isn't immune to anything. So now let's talk about S tier, for example, right? But those are your A tier characters. So S tier, we have Ichibei. Now, Ichibei has been designed to essentially counter characters like Noitora. In a 1v1 matchup, Noitora will almost always lose to Ichibei. Having said that, I think in general usage against any other character, Ichibei kind of falls short compared to Noitora, in my opinion, and that's why I place him a tad bit higher. So Ichibei has a Espada Killer, which is kind of worse compared to Noitora's Captain Killer, for example, because there are more captains in Brave Battles. Espada Killer is relatively only good against Noitora, because you don't really see that many other Espadas in Brave Battles. He does have weakening, he does have immunity to paralysis, which is great, and that's why he's just an SD. He's a very solid character. He has Pierce Barrier, he has a barrier for himself, so in a sense too, he could also be used to go against, to stop characters like Aizen, and to kind of go against characters like Kenpachi, for example. Chad is a character that is, again, a human character, so very rarely is someone going to have killer against him, and if they do, it's only 20% compared to the average 40% that a lot of PvP killers do have. Chad's main thing is that he's a boost character that can be tanky. Yeah, 16% DR, no bruiser, unfortunately, no immunities, but the boost is good enough, and yeah, he's overall just a very solid PvP character in general. Having said that, though, I do feel like people's opinion on this character, and maybe even mine to a certain extent, is more so swayed because a lot of times you do see Chad in Brave Battles, he's fully duped out. But a 1 out of 5 Chad is normally less ideal than the characters above him. For example, this Ikaku. And we have a very similar case to Ruroka vs. Kenny, where they're basically the same character, just he has more going for him. So he, by the way, Chad has Captain Killer, which is great, right? That's also good. Now, Ikaku doesn't have a good PvP killer. He has Hollow Kill, which isn't good, similar to Ruroka, but you do have 20% bruiser. So in a situation where you're comparing these two as who is the better character, Ikaku will always out DPS Chad unless you're going against a captain. At the same time too, Ikaku is better because one, he has better stats, he also has weak immunity, which is significantly better in my opinion. He has the same boost, SA2, 20-second boost, and he also does have last ditch. So essentially, Ikaku is just a slightly better Chad, although most people would say Chad is better probably because you have him duped out. But in a 1v1 situation when they're both 5-5, Ikaku will always perform better than Chad. Chad does have paralysis, but it's only for 2 seconds. So the paralysis isn't that great on Chad because he has no debilitator. But overall, 2 of them are very good tanky characters when duped out, and overall just make for some very solid Brave Battle characters. Moving on to Noitora. Noitora does have a Captain Killer with DR Poise. He has a 10-second boost, which is less ideal than a 20-second boost, and maybe I'm putting Noitora a tad bit too high, but the start barrier that he does have, the fact that he does have Captain Killer, makes him pretty good. Let's say in a hypothetical situation where you have Pierce Barrier on your Noitora and you go against a Kenpachi, for example, that doesn't have Pierce Barrier, this Noitora will have the advantage against someone like Kenpachi. The 10-second boost is okay as a team booster, but not enough. But then again, most games can normally be settled within the first 10 or so seconds. When he does boost, he transforms, which does increase his attacks. He also has paralysis on everything with a debilitator +5, so there have been many situations where you get non-stop stuck in a paralysis loop thanks to Noitora. His SA1 is a beam forward, which really does help with him sniping the sword bomb. So Noitora is still a very solid character when it comes to Brave Battles. Moving on to Arskin. What isn't there to say about Arskin? Arskin, in my opinion, has gotten better over time thanks to characters like Kenpachi, for example. So, let me quickly explain. Arskin was designed to counter Ichibe, fine enough. So Ichibe was designed to counter Noitora, and then Arskin was made to counter Ichibe. So again, in a 1v1 situation, Arskin will always win against Ichibe. Now, unfortunately, Arskin does inflict poison on all of its attacks, but it's SA2, so that's not ideal. Poison's pretty much a throwaway. But he does have a 30% bruiser. He is immune to paralysis and poison, but poison isn't really worth mentioning. He has poise and he has flow, right? So he's already just good damage output. Killer is kind of wasted on this character unless you do find an Ichibe in Brave battles. But most importantly, he does have a plus 10 start bar, which is nice. And then the main thing why I placed him this high is the SA2. His SA2 is basically a reverse debuff. So in the same sense where a boost is very important, like I did mention, almost every team does want to have a boost because it buffs your attack, focus, and defense by 33%. The debuff effect is the opposite. So it lowers the enemy's team defense, attack, and focus by 33%. Which is very, very big. And the great thing about this, and in a sense it's also balanced to a certain extent, is that the boost and the debuff effect cancel each other out. So wherever activates second is going to cancel the other one out. So let's say in an off chance that the boost activates first and then the debuff effect goes off, the debuff effect will take over the boost and now you just have negative stats. If the debuff effect goes off first and then you activate your boost, then the boost will negate the debuff effect. So that hopefully that does make sense. Now, Arskin, it can't debuff these invincible characters, which is very unfortunate. But again, because you are seeing a lot of Kenpachis in Brave battles now, and because he isn't invincible, Arskin can debuff him, even with the shield on. So there have been cases where I pretty much win a game going against Kenpachi because I debuffed him, and he has no boost now. So my character that's going against Kenpachi is having an easier time. So I think Arskin is very solid, and he also works really well against someone like this Tsukishima, for example. So Arskin's very good. Overall, very solid characters. Can't go wrong with any of them. Really just pick and choose what you want to bring for your team. Now let's talk about the SS tier characters, starting off with Drugum. Now Drugum I think is actually very solid. Obviously he is a power character with the squad 0 killer. Realistically he didn't need it because Arskin already existed to counter someone like Ichibe, but it does mean in the chance that he does ever go against a, you know, Ichibe for example, who was more meta back in the day or common, he can do more damage to him. So for the most part Drugum's killer is kind of useless, right? But the thing about this Drugum is that he is the first character in the game to have Brave Battle temporary invincibility. So for the first 10 seconds of the match, he takes no damage. Great. Very, very good. At the same time, too, he has a 20% Brave Battle counter. So when someone does damage to him, 20% of that damage is being countered back to your own character. I didn't mention earlier, but that's why I don't like these last ditch teams, is that when you do revive and try and snipe from afar, if they have Kenpachi or Drugum, that, because you have a tiny bit of damage left, that damage that you're doing will get countered back to you, and it could end that entire strategy. So there's too much stuff going against this last ditch strategy for it to be very viable, in my opinion. So the counter's great, 10-second invincibility. He also has poise, fly +1, he inflicts weakening, and he has pierce barrier. So going against Kenpachi, for example, any character that does have, you know, a barrier, he works very well, and he's a power character too. He's very good. Drugum's a top tier Brave Battle character, and he's only really outdone by the characters that pretty much came out after him. So it just goes to show how powerful Drugum actually is. The next character is going to be Tsukishima. So Tsukishima is basically a counter to Drugum, right? That's what he was designed for. So Tsukishima also has damage taken by 60%. He has a Steroid killer, so he's good against characters like this. He himself has a no affiliation killer, which is great because not that many people will have no affiliation killer. And when they do, it's only a 20% killer compared to the 40% killer that, you know, characters like this character has against Drugum, for example. The main thing about him is that he also does have the 10-second invincibility. So, of course, he's going to be a very good character for this. He has poise, long reach, fly +1. He has a 20% bruiser, which is great. He has a team boost SA2, which is also very important. Like I did mention at the start of the video, it's very important for you to have a team boost in your team, and Tsukishima is pretty much one of the best characters for that. He also does have Drain, so there's a very good chance that he can, you know, heal back his HP. And when he does use his Soul Bomb, he does inflict weakened defense. So he's going to be, one, healing himself back up again because his Soul Bomb does inflict Drain. And he will also be weakening their defense. So at the very least, once he does use his Soul Bomb, your now entire team will be doing more damage against the enemy team. So very solid character, counters Drugum, invincible character, team booster. There's almost no reason to never use this character in your team. Very, very powerful. Now, of course, the only way to make a character better than him is to make someone like Yamamoto. And Yamamoto was a bit too OP in my opinion, and that's why I feel like I might want to put him above Kenpachi, because while it's true that Kenpachi does kind of kill the last ditch meta and he does counter Yamamoto, Kenpachi is a lot easier to go against compared to Yamamoto, so I might just go with this one for those that stuck near the end, because Yamamoto is very, very powerful for many reasons. For example, the main reason why Yama is so toxic is this man, he is also immune to damage for 10 seconds. So just like Tsukishima, just like Drugum, he cannot take damage for 10 seconds. But they gave him Ignore, Brave Battle, Invincibility. So, even though these two characters can't take damage for 10 seconds, they can against characters like this Yamamoto. So, Yama's taking no damage against these two characters, but then he's also damaging those two characters, which is great. He also does inflict Weakening and also Burn, which is also great because if they are immune to Weakening, they can at least get Burn, and at the same time too, it inflicts both at the same time. So, if you're not immune to Weakening, you are now weakened, and you're now losing significantly more damage. He does also have a Sternritter Killer, so he does more damage against characters like you, and he himself is also immune to Weakening and Drain, which is also great because these two characters also have Weakening and Drain. So he's basically here to counter those two characters, but at the same time, they just all work together really well in the same team. And then at the same time too, he does have Poise, he has Fly +1, 20% Bruiser, Debilitator +5, Last Ditch Survive 100%, and also Prevent Brave Battle Healing. So he can't even let Tsukishima heal. So it's pretty much just characters countering each other. Having said that though, now let's talk about the last character, Kenpachi, who again, I'm conflicted on whether I should put him above Yamamoto or not, because it's the same thing here where, yes, you know, this character is better than Noitoro in a 1v1. I feel like Noitoro is better, and it might be the same thing here. I feel like this character is better against every other character in the game, but then you just absolutely destroy characters like Yamamoto. So I'm going to put Yama as the still best character in Brave Battles, which I think is good, because the way they've been releasing these 3 invincible characters were just very toxic, that it made Brave Battles they just kept one up in each other, right? But when it comes to Kenpachi, he came out, he counters Yamamoto, but he's also kind of balanced, because there's a lot of things you can do to go against Kenpachi. So, for example, right, let me explain why Kenpachi's great. He himself has Captain Killer. He's a main character, so he counters Yamamoto. 16% DR, Flurry +2, so he has a very high damage output for a Brave Battle character. He has Poise, he has Last Ditch, and he has Ignore, Brave Battle, Invincibility. So he can damage all these invincible characters. But the main thing about this Kenpachi, the great thing about him, is that he does have Prevent Last Ditch Survival. So the idea of Kenpachi is not to 1v3 teams. He's not supposed to do that. He's supposed to make, and I might just put him in number 1 again just for that reason. He is there to make a 3v3 become a 3v2. That's essentially the reason, because in the off chance that you put, let's say, this Yamamoto against Tsukishima, Tsukishima will die and revive, because everyone's rocking Last Ditch, for example. But when this Kenpachi gets the final hit, if he does, they don't revive. It completely ignores the Last Ditch, and that's why I feel like Kenpachi is actually the best character when you think about it, because he basically turns any game into a 3v2. And while yes, it is true that it's easier to go against Kenpachi than it is to Yamamoto, if you have Kenpachi, again, most games it's always a 3v2. It's great. Kenpachi's great because he just ignores that Last Ditch. He completely kills any of these, Last Ditch strategy teams. If he does kill Yamamoto, which a lot of times he is basically one-shotting Yamamoto, it's great. In the off chance that you are rocking a very popular team right now, these top 3 characters, Suki's there for the boost, Yama's there to go against any invincible character or any other character in the game that's not Kenpachi, and then Kenpachi is there to basically one-shot the Yama and just not even let him revive. So Kenpachi is an amazing character in Brave Battles. At the same time too, he has Paralysis duration as 100%, he's immune to Paralysis, and he also is immune to Weakening. So in the case where he's going against someone like Noitoro or any character that inflicts Paralysis, which is very common in Brave Battles, it don't matter. If he goes against Yamamoto, he's never going to get offhandedly inflicted by a status omen. And the great thing about Kenpachi too is that he does have Poison, so I'm not sure I mentioned that, but also Start Barrier +10, so he does, for the first 10 hits, he's taking no damage, which is nice. Now, when you do T15 or T20 a character, you can give that character, Pierce Barrier, for example, and it's almost recommended now because a lot of teams are rocking barriers, a lot of teams are having characters like this in the team, and realistically, I feel like this is definitely the 4 best characters in Brave Battles, and these top 3 are probably the 3 best characters. If you have them all transcended, you're going to have a very easy time in Brave Battles. You just got to make sure you pick and choose who you go against, because even with the best team, you can still lose. And with that said, lads, that was the PvP Brave Battle tier list for today. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did stick out to the end of the video, I do really appreciate it, because it was probably like a half an hour video. I will try and shorten it down to like 20 minutes. There's just a lot to talk about and a lot to say when it comes to these characters. So hopefully I was able to explain my thoughts well and why I did place them where I did. If you disagree with any placements, let me know so I can maybe fix it by the next time we do update this tier list. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. My voice hurts, so I'm going to now go drink a bottle of water and rest for the rest of the day. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.